you're planning on buying a home in 2024, then you need to watch this video. Today I'm going to be covering my top 5 predictions that could potentially save you thousands of dollars on your purchase if you buy right. I am Cameron Manning. I am a local real estate agent in the Greater Vancouver and Fraser Valley area. Obviously 2024, it's up in the air. No one really knows what's going to happen, but what we can do is we can take a look at the data and really try to interpret what it's going to mean. I've actually been kind of right on some of my predictions in the most recent months. So let's dive into it right now. What's going to happen in 2024? Before we jump into 2024 though, we got to kind of look at what happened over last year. Now in 2023, we saw a bit of a roller coaster when it came to the market. We saw in the early months, January, February, the interest rates started to hold again, and fixed rates actually had come down. Sounds familiar with what might be going on right now. In that time frame, we saw the market start to take off. Spring of 2023 saw a very hot market again where we saw multiple offers. Prices started to come back up where they were before the rates started to increase and cause the property values to drop. Then obviously the Bank of Canada started to raise the interest rates again, and we saw that market really start to slow down. Very interesting to watch what happens with the Bank of Canada interest rate rises and the impact that it created on buyer demand in our market. The fall months, we've seen several announcements where they held the rate again, just like we saw earlier in the year. As it sits right now, as we head into 2024, we have seen those fixed rates come down. Bond yields have taken a bit of a hit and they have come down, dragging with them those fixed rate mortgages. Suddenly, as we got through December, we started to see that market pick up. Now we're in 2024. So what does that mean? Let's go through my 5 predictions. And if you watch all the way to the end, I'm going to give you a 6th bonus prediction, especially if you're thinking about investing in real estate in 2024. Interest rates. As we got through COVID, we saw interest rates was a big discussion while they were bringing them down, reacting to the economic situation we're in with a global pandemic. It caused the market to go absolutely haywire. In fact, it was the complete opposite effect as to what the Bank of Canada actually predicted what would happen. As we headed into 2022, they started raising those interest rates. We have now seen the rates level out. So in 2024, my prediction is that we are going to start to see the rates start to come back down. We're not going to see the rates coming down like we saw during a pandemic. And so if that's what you have in your mind, I'm going to wait till rates hit 1.99 again. I think you're going to be waiting a long time. But I do anticipate that the rates are going to start to show signs of needing to come down because there's been a lot of pressure that's been put onto the market. I think by, I would say, just past Q1, I don't think it's going to be right away, but sometimes towards the middle of the year, we're going to see an announcement where they're going to drop the interest rate. I don't anticipate that rate to come down significantly. I would predict that the most they're going to do is around a 0.25% drop, but even a 0.25% drop will impact the market as people start to see those rates coming down. Well, it's going to spur people on to want to start buying, in my opinion. Now, I think by the end of the year, we could see between, I would say on the low end, 0.5, and on the high end, some economists are even saying as high as a 1% drop by the end of the year. If it drops by 1%, you can absolutely guarantee heading into 2025 is going to be a crazy market. I don't think they're necessarily going to go that high. I have a good feeling that in 2024, we're definitely going to see some sort of impact on the variable rates. Now, obviously, we have already been seeing the fixed rate mortgages coming down as we headed into January, and I anticipate that that's going to continue. While we see markets continue to shift in terms of global aspects, we're going to see recessions start to rise. We're already seeing it in several different sectors, such as tech, where people are getting laid off. If that trend continues, it's going to have a negative effect on bond yields, which will bring that fixed rate down as it has already done so. We are already starting to hear people getting sub 5% fixed rates. Obviously is very attractive when you think about people who are just getting between 6 and 6.5%. So prediction number 2 is about inventory. Our inventory took a massive beating into January here. Just in Greater Vancouver alone, over 2,000 listings expired off of the market, which I think is partially why through Christmas, we have seen the market really start to ramp up. We have seen a lot of buyers. And how do we measure that? Well, when I'm hosting an open house, I have seen more people coming to open houses, even on stagnated listings, than I have in months. We've seen more showing requests start to happen. And of course, offers coming in on properties that are not actually terrible, full and close to list. What we're seeing here is there's a lack of inventory as we head into this new year because not everyone whose listing expired has come back onto the market. As we head into that spring market, first, there is the fact that a lot of people who are going to be coming up for renewals, maybe they took like a 3-year term early on when they bought their property in the pandemic, those are going to be coming up for renewal, as well as those who bought before the pandemic and were on 5-year terms. They're all coming up for renewals as well. And suddenly they're going to have a bit of an interest rate shock. Even if the rates have come down a little bit, if they're on a fixed rate mortgage, if they were at like something like a 3 or 3.5% and now they're looking at 5%, that could cause some payment shock. So I think we are going to see an increase in the inventory through 2024, especially in the springtime, because I've got a lot of clients telling me they want to wait till spring as well. My suggestion, little bonus tip for you, is don't wait till the spring market to list your home. If you're thinking about listing, best time to list your home is either at the end of January or towards the middle of February. Just get slightly ahead of that spring market because you don't want to be competing with all the other sellers for the buyer's attention when the spring market hits, especially if everyone's thinking the same idea. The other thing to consider as well is that we had new legislation that came into play with the Airbnbs. I don't anticipate it's necessarily going to impact the rental market as much as they say it's going to. What I think is going to happen is several investors are going to suddenly put their homes on the market, which is also going to increase the inventory as we get closer to the deadline of May 1st, 2024 for the Airbnbs to be registered. So that's my prediction. Inventory is going to start to increase slightly above what we've seen in some of the past couple of years. All right, prediction number 3 revolves around sales. Now, sales is really what we like to call the demand aspect. What are people actually going out and buying in the market? Now, I've got several things to say about sales and why I think sales in 2024 is also going to be increasing. We're already seeing it at the beginning of the year. As we saw in 2023, as soon as those interest rates held and fixed came down a little bit, we saw a market start to pick up. Buyers jumped off the fence and started buying right away in 2023. Then when those rates went back up, of course, it kind of stagnated out the demand. We've seen a couple of months now where the variable rate has been held because the Bank of Canada has not increased their rates. At the same token, fixed rates have come down. I actually had this prediction back in November at one of our investors performance group meetings where I talked about it, how this could lead to more buyers or more demand picking up in the market.
Now this one's been a little bit of an interesting one to track. As we take a look at the sales, we had a huge spike. Everyone remembers the springtime here, right? A huge spike in sales. Then it came down because suddenly the government went, let's pause interest rates. Then let's increase interest rates. Now look at what the trend curve is starting to do. What happened recently? They paused interest rates. So what do we think might happen if they continue with the pauses? They don't increase. Maybe sales will start improving again. People will start saying, okay, the dust is settling a little bit. Maybe it's time to get back into the market.
So if we see that same trend continue where the variable rate is held, we might start to see the demand pick up early on in the year if they drop that rate. I think we're going to see a bigger surge of buyers into the market. One of the big government policies that came into play, and that's around immigration. Canada brought in 1,050,000 new Canadians into the country. We broke over 40 million Canadians. And the one thing that we all have to ask ourselves is, do we have enough housing to meet that demand? Absolutely no, we do not have enough housing. As we continue with these aggressive immigration policies, well, that's just going to put more and more pressure on the demand. It might put pressure on the rental housing at first, but that a lot of times spills over into the demand aspect because we are focusing on our immigration policies, bringing in people who have money and are looking to buy housing. As we continue to bring in more and more Canadians, I think we're going to see a significant crunch on inventory because that demand is going to be so high, it's going to start to put pressure on pricing, which we'll get into. One thing also on the demand aspect is that CMHC has actually predicted that we need at least 3.5 million, that's 3.5 million more homes by 2030. Now that's only 6 years away. If we continue at the pace of building that we are at, especially when we see markets slow down, developers take a step back and stop building as much, we're going to be significantly behind these targets to be able to match that demand and keep housing prices stabilized. So what we need right now is for more building. We need less red tape to be able to increase the inventory to match the demand. And again, as we see those rates come down, I really see that we're going to have an upward pressure on that demand. Number 4, government policy. And this is not so much, let's say, a prediction, but a bit of a review and what I think is going to happen because of it. Now, the first one is the fact that the government has put a massive restriction on Airbnbs across the province. They cited that there was like 25,000 units that could be turned back into long-term rentals. There's a significant reason as to why these Airbnb hosts chose to use Airbnb versus being on a long-term rental. One of those aspects is with the rise in interest rates, it got unaffordable for many of these people to be able to hold on to their property unless they came up with an alternative strategy to be able to cash flow the property. Airbnb in a lot of these situations or short-term rentals was that solution. So while you're trying to put a policy in place to increase long-term rentals, if they're unaffordable for the seller or the owner of those properties to be able to hold on to them, they will turn into sellers, and that will, one, increase demand as we discussed before, but also it'll actually pull away of potential rental properties in the market. Many of these homes are selling to end user buyers who are buying it to live in the property. The Airbnb policy, I don't think is going to have the impact that they think it's going to have. In my opinion, it's another one of those knee-jerk reactions from the government to say we're working on housing. The next one is the fact that they have changed zoning across BC for single family lots to be allowed to densify to hold 3, 4, 5, even in the cases of the city of Vancouver, up to 8 units if parts of it are used for purpose-built rentals. This is a great avenue for maybe developers or builders who want to increase the amount of density that they can have on a property, especially investors buying a $1.5, $2 million property, they put 5 or 6 rental units on there. It might be advantageous. However, there's still a significant amount of red tape that's involved at municipal levels. So making this broad sweeping play for what can be done with single family homes also requires the fact that municipalities have to get on board with issuing permits. Now, can this increase the housing supply? Potentially. Will it do that in a very fast fashion? I don't really think so. We won't see the impact in 2024, as it does take in some cases over a year to build many of these properties. So those are 2 government policy changes that we're going to have to watch and see how it plays out and the impact it has on the market through 2024. Prediction number 5. What is going to happen with prices across Greater Vancouver and Fraser Valley area? If we see that the demand starts to increase because of interest rate drops, that's obviously going to put some upward pressure onto the market. We're going to see some prices start to increase. Do I think it's going to have the same impact on prices like we saw at the pandemic when rates came down, where we started to see 15, 20, 25, and even up to 35% increases in housing? No. I don't think we're going to see that rapid of a rise. I anticipate we're probably going to be in line with the average that we experience in Greater Vancouver, somewhere between that 5 to 7% gains on detached, and condos and townhouses could see maybe between 4 and 6%, depending on how much activity there really is. A lot of factors come into play. What actually happens with interest rates? How much inventory actually goes up? And at the end of the day, whenever someone starts predicting price increases like I am right now, we're just consulting a crystal ball. I have no real idea what prices are going to go up, so we're going to be watching it together throughout the year and to see what really happens. But for my investors, here is my bonus number 6 prediction, and that is rentals. I think we're going to start to see more areas come back into the cash flow zone. That includes areas like Chilliwack, Mission, Abbotsford, even, maybe Maple Ridge. As we see interest rates start to drop, it's going to lower the payments required to hold on to properties. But what I do see is there's going to be an impact on rentals that's going to continue to happen. And a part of that is through that immigration policy we talked about, as well as if people are having to liquidate their homes because they can't afford them, they're also going to be going into the rental pool. We're going to see that upward trend continue on the monthly rental amounts that people are paying. When we see an increase in the monthly rental amount that tenants are paying, as well as a decrease in both the mortgage amounts you're paying through either buying a great deal or you're getting a better interest rate, we're going to see more of those properties start to hit the cash flow zone. In fact, we're already starting to see properties that do cash flow come back into the market. So if you guys are interested in looking at growing your portfolio, I think there's going to be some great opportunities in 2024 for you to do just that. And that's it. That is my predictions for 2024. And as I mentioned, my predictions don't really matter. What really matters is what's happening in your personal life circumstances. If buying is right for you right now, then buy. Don't worry about the interest rate. Don't worry about price, because if you're going to buy and you're going to live there for 5, 6, 7, 10 years, you're going to do fine in any market. If you're planning on selling, make sure you look at what's happening in your local market. Sell because you absolutely need to or want to, not because you're trying to cash out or do anything like that. And if you're an investor, I think there's going to be some great opportunities for investing this year. These are all predictions. We don't know if they're going to come true or not. So you make the decision that's right for you. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you're notified of all future videos. We are really going to start ramping up the video content on this channel this year. That is one of my big goals of 2024, and you can definitely help me by helping grow this channel. And I'd love to hear from you guys what you would like to see in 2024 on this channel. Drop that in the comments as well, so I can give you guys the best advice that I can heading into the new year. And we'll see you guys in the next video.